Hello, America. Welcome to your Leo Nation. I am the Chief Mark Garrett. Just great to have everybody back. We are living in some crazy times right now. And unfortunately, a lot of the craziness is actually emanating from our once great, hopefully great again country. There's just too much dismissal of the rule of law going on right now. And to help me talk about a couple of big topics right now is the older, sometimes wiser,
You're pushing it.
mm, yeah,
You're pushing it.
version of me, my brother Danny. Danny, it's great to have you back. We did a great episode several months ago at the house in California, where you're still stuck, and now we're doing it remotely. How you doing, big bro?
Listen, first of all, I'm tired of seeing you checks for all those props you're giving me. Okay.
Well, you know
So
what? It was kind of I said sometimes wiser. So I don't
well,
know. Maybe I should send you some money or rebate.
that's why I have this tape on my ears right now. I'm leaking information as the seconds go by. I'm trying to forget half this crap here. And so Mark, I need to warn everybody. Now, I had prostate cancer 5 years ago, and when they ruined my prostate, they ruined my bladder. So brother sometimes gotta. So if you guys see me like underneath the table and stuff's going on and jiggling. Okay, I got that. That's why I have my Starbucks cup here. It works as a toilet sometimes. So, I'm just, so you guys, man, Danny, man, I don't know if Danny's getting off or something underneath there. So, no, I'm acting, it just Mother Nature calling. So, hopefully that
Danny,
won't
we
happen.
really wish you'd open up here. I mean, this is come on. You need to relax and be yourself. What's going on?
No, it
My
just no,
God.
no. I won't be doing it. Ain't freaky under the table. Just Just so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm aiming. Okay.
People tell me, "Hey, Mark, hey, TMI all the time." This is TMI right here, folks. This is TMI, like the definition of it. So, and
Yeah.
there he is
Yeah.
drinking some fluid right now. But anyway,
hmm hmm
for those of you who are only listening and not viewing the podcast right now, my brother Danny has his ear pods taped into his ears like he's getting ready to get into a NASCAR stock car right now for a race, and he's also wearing, by the way, and you may not be able to see it if you're watching, but he's wearing a fantastic. There you go. It says capitalism makes, socialism takes. And I can't remember. Oh, I know. It was your younger, not so attractive brother who got you that shirt. I have one in my
Yeah,
closet as
absolutely.
well. But
Absolutely.
um, but anyway, it's great. And yes, that all has to do something with the rule of law. We always talk about the rule of law on your Leo Nation, law enforcement, rule of law, and we're going to do that today. Today we are going to take a kind of a high view, 30,000 foot view of some issues, especially the first one. And that one, in fact, Danny, you and I were just talking yesterday, kind of off the cuff, and I said, you know what? Hey, let's get on and let's do a podcast about these topics. And that first one we want to talk about is the border security, or currently the vastly lack thereof border security in this country. And why is it such an important topic? Look, we know what just happened recently in Israel. We know the importance of borders, no matter what the left tells you, no matter what socialists tell you, no matter what fake the fake kind peoples. Oh, we have we need open borders. We are a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state. No matter what those phonies tell you, we all know that we lock our front doors at night. We all know that a
Absolutely.
lot of us have fences and walls around our personal property. But when it comes to the
Absolutely.
macro, when it comes to something that doesn't affect us, then it's a whole different story. So, well, not for you and me, but for a lot of these people who claim to be so wonderful. So we're seeing this happen in Israel right now. And by the way, we do a couple of podcasts a month here, so things can change in between, obviously, the podcast. But we're going to talk about the philosophical issues here, not necessarily the tactical things that are happening from day to day. We're not going to talk about Israel, but Israel illustrates the importance of having a physical barrier. And what else illustrates the importance of this is for instance, in Israel right now, Egypt has closed their border with the Gaza Strip. And Danny, we're talking about this. Why has Egypt closed their border with the Gaza Strip?
Well, the thing is, Egypt wants to make sure is that they control who comes into their country. You have Hamas there in the on the Gaza Strip here, and these are terrorists. Well, the last thing that Egypt wants to do is have these people retreat into their country, and so they want to protect their country from this infiltration. I mean, it just makes to me it's just common sense, and that's one of the
So,
main reasons why they're closing it off.
now, are you saying that Egypt feels that a physical barrier is it a very effective way to ensure their sovereignty and their security? Is that what you're telling me? Are you being that
Absolutely.
outlandish?
Absolutely. They want to create a physical barrier.
Because we hear this all the time. Go ahead.
Oh no, no. I was letting you finish your sentence.
Yeah, but
and I don't want to. I want to stay focused here. But a
yeah,
few years ago, well, actually, this is when Trump was in office. Now, Mark, I go to my gym. It's LA Fitness, and there's a lot of liberal thinking people at this gym. And there's one gal I'm friends with. I call her the angry black woman, and but she does actually. But I actually can't remember her name now. I've always called her angry black woman, ABW. And I said, "Listen, look, AB, let's talk." Listen, angry black, and we were talking about border security, and she's one of these liberal people. Yeah, they should be able to come over here because they're running from tyranny in Mexico, where they're coming from. And I said, you know what? Listen, I'll tell you what. I said, when you tear down your block walls and you get the people in your neighborhood to tear down their block walls that surround your house, when everyone starts tearing down their block walls and open their front doors, then you know what? I think I might start thinking about open borders. I said, but who's going to do that? I said, are you going to do that? And she was, well, that's different. I said, well, how's that different? She was, well, that's my own personal property. And I said, well, America is our own personal property. We pay taxes. We protect, and I said, I see America as my own personal property. And now, of course, she didn't agree with that. And she just felt it was a different thing. I said, you locked your doors, you locked your car doors, you secure everything that you own every single day of your life, but we don't want to secure our borders. And now, of course, she believes that everyone crosses.
Well, this is exactly right, Danny. This is well, and this right. In other words, there's nobody with nefarious intentions crossing the border. This is these are good people. They're escaping oppression. They're looking for a better way, a better life for their family. And by the way, if I lived in some of those crap hole countries south of our border, I would be dragging my family across this border to get in America as well. Absolutely. And by the way, this goes to a different story about a different take on this about how bad America is, how racist America is,
Right.
blah, 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 on and on and on and on and on. But at the same time, these same people who are denigrating America talk about, well, these people are coming from their country for a better way of life. Which one is it? Is this a better way of life in this country, or is it an S-hole? Make up your mind. Like I said in other podcasts, people on the left, socialists, the commies, all the same thing. There is this disconnect from reality, and because they're not grounded in the rule of law, they're not grounded in historical philosophies, they're not grounded in lessons learned. They're all over the place. They're like a flag in the wind,
right?
And whatever suits an argument that day is the argument that they're going to attach themselves to. So, to drill down a little bit, and you made a good point about with the angry black woman in your gym about, well, it's different, it's personal property and blah 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 blah. And you set this up talking about the Egyptian border, and the Egyptians absolutely, I'm sure they don't believe that every Palestinian is a terrorist, but they know that a good number of them are. A good number of them sympathize with the terrorists, with Hamas and other factions in the Gaza Strip, And they are simply saying, listen, we're not going to let anybody in. One, we can't handle on a humanitarian level. It's too much
It's
for
too
our
much.
infrastructure.
Right.
And also, we have a country to protect from violence. So why wouldn't that apply to America? And again, this is going back to the rule of law. What is the federal government's? I mean, what are a few of their primary, historically primary functions? And that is to ensure the safety, the security of its citizens from foreign adversaries, whether they're in uniform or they're not. So I'm reading an article here. It was a Fox News article, and this is a statement here from from uh, Customs Border Protection. Thousands of special interest aliens, quote unquote, special interest aliens from various countries and regions, including the Middle East, have been arrested by Border Patrol agents attempting to cross the U.S. southern border illegally. No kidding. Terrorists are coming illegally. Here's my passport.
Right.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Right.
southern border illegally over the last 2 years. Internal Customs and Border Protection data leaked to Fox News. Leaked to Fox News. Thousands, I'm going to say that again, thousands of special interests. Now, this is a euphemism for terrorists, special interest aliens.
Absolutely.
So these are the ones that we know of, and we're going to dig down a little more about this. Continues, special interest aliens are people from countries identified by the U.S. government as having conditions that promote or protect terrorism or potentially pose some sort of national security threat to the U.S. My God, if these people could just write in simple, straightforward terms.
Right. Exactly.
People who are dangerous to this country.
Right. Exactly.
And these are people that the U.S. government has already identified. So let me throw out a couple more stats here to chew on for our listeners and viewers. So just over the last fiscal year, through August of this year, through August of 2023, going back August 2022 or September 2022, does anybody out there want to guess how many illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, terrorists, whatever, the total have crossed the southern border? Anybody? Bueller? In the last 12 months, we're going through August, so a little more now, there have been 2.3 million people that Border Patrol has made contact with at the southern border. 2.3 million people, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to think about that.
They aren't all coming from Mexico. They're
Danny?
from all around the world.
Well, absolutely. As per this leaked information from Border Patrol here just a minute ago, that these are from all over the world. And right here, I'm quoting it, including the Middle East.
Right.
2.3 million. And by the way, those are 2.3 million people that we know of.
Exactly.
So, look, here's the thing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those are the phrases, yes, I use. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, or something else in the world. Anyway, different topic. But I want you to think about this. For those of you in law enforcement, or maybe you've heard the term from me before anybody else, about 10% of the population in this country, about 10% of the people commit about 90% of the crime. I'll say it again. About 10% of the people in the United States that are here legally or otherwise, green card, whatever it is, about 10% of the people in this country commit about 90% of all crime. So let's go back to the argument that so many people make. Well, these are people who are just there trying to build a better life. And by the way, I completely agree with that. That most of the people, the vast majority, are coming here for non-nefarious reasons. But when you are, that we know of, when you are letting 2.3 million people in a year cross this border, the majority of whom are not being sent back, let's just say it's 5%. Okay, by my calculation, by my public school education, 5% of 2 million is, I don't know, what is that, 100,000 people, give or take?
People. Right.
Okay, is that close?
That's close enough.
Let's say it's 100. Let's say it's 2%. Let's say it's 50,000. You know what? Let's cut that in half. Let's cut that in half and say it's 20. No. Let's cut that in half and say it's 12. No, let's cut that. Let's say it's 5,000 people.
Right.
It's like 0.00001% of the people crossing the border are coming here for nefarious reasons, general criminal reasons, for drug trafficking, fentanyl, for human trafficking, for theft, for RICO types of behavior, and terrorism. Let's just say it's 5,000 people. Danny, we were talking yesterday. How many people took down the World Trade Center?
What, 19 people?
19 people.
19 people?
So when we're talking about 5%, and I think you listened to my math, I'm going down to the very
Right.
minimal.
Exactly.
And remember, for those of you who are haters out there, oh, you're a bigot, you hate people, of color, like my Mexican wife. Yes, like that person, right? Okay. So, but I gave you people out there who can't think for yourselves and who cannot think honestly and separate your ideology from the facts. I gave an example that 10% of Americans commit 90% of the crime here, right? So why wouldn't I apply that to anybody else? Are you telling me that people from Venezuela or Brazil or Nicaragua or Mexico or Panama, that they're more enlightened? They're better people than Americans?
Exactly.
That could be your argument. Right. Is that what you're saying? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're better or the worse. I'm saying if you just go with the averages, if you treat everybody the same, which you purport to want to do all the time, I know I do. Right. So that's what we're talking about. So this is the problem with the philosophy of this current administration. I know I'm talking so much now. And Danny, I want to give you the floor here.
No, we're talking, preaching, brother. I like it. We're preaching.
We're talking also in this realm about terrorists. And I think we talked yesterday, Danny, about the 100 people on the terrorist watch list that over the last year have been apprehended by Border Patrol. And maybe you want to talk about that, or I can go with it as well.
Well, you're doing an excellent job. I mean, heck, I'm sitting here in school working on my PhD now. Okay.
Well, let me.
Much.
Well,
no, Mark, something that you said though, and it's just it's a word that you used, and the word was truth. A lot of people don't want to know the truth. They see what's happening and they make excuses for it, and they don't want to know the truth. Something else that you also said reminded me of the book 1984. A lot of doublespeak when they're talking about these issues, when they're talking about these illegal aliens, and things that are going on. They want to use these real words that aren't. We don't want to use these words that can be like combative, maybe combative or something. They try to really make things so simplistic in their description of what's going on, so people kind of get this relaxed feeling that, okay, well, these are just people of interest, or they're just looking at these people. They really aren't that bad. They're keeping an eye, and it's like, no, these guys are terrorists, but they don't want to call them terrorists. Especially this administration, they want to downplay so many things here to put Americans asleep. It's like that movie with Roddy Piper, They Live. They just want Americans to go to sleep and be accepting of what's going on. It's like what's happening in the Middle East. I talked to a few people that dream about the Middle East, and for them, their response is, "Oh, it's been going on for thousands of years. It's not a big deal." And it's like, it is a big deal. This is something. Yes, they've had religious fights for centuries over the Middle East, but this isn't just about that. And but people, just Americans, are just it's just so irritating how Americans are just so sound asleep over here, just thinking that, hey, you know what? I want to get up in the morning, hit that light switch, it's going to go on, the shower's going to go on, I'm going to make my cup of coffee. Heck, I'm going to go to Starbucks because it'll be open, turn my car on, drive my nice little Tesla down the street, and the red lights are going to turn red, the green lights are going to turn green. And just, they think in America, nothing's going to change. And that's the problem. they
It is a
think that.
problem, Danny. And you know what? And we felt, I know I did, I'm speaking for you, I'm sure you felt the same way, as tens of millions of Americans, I'm sure, felt 22 years ago after 9/11. We really thought, okay, we've been woken up. We're never going to go back, like you said, we're not going to go back to sleep again. We're never going to be on our heels again. We're going to be vigilant. We are going to
Right.
be aware of the possibility, the likelihood of these types of attacks. And I think in some ways we're worse off now than we were the day before
Absolutely.
9/11.
Absolutely, we are. Absolutely. Our
And the reason is
military.
because, in other words, we don't have, yeah, for anybody over 35 years old, let's say now, there's no excuse not to be aware of reality anymore. There is no
No excuse.
excuse. We
Exactly.
saw what happened, and somehow we have returned to, like you said, this zombie like bury your head in the ground type of mentality and behavior specifically relating to the border, because this is behavior. And I want to get into some nuts and bolts about this administration's handling of the border and why they're doing what they're doing. But going back real quick to the terrorist watch list. So, and this is from this article from Fox News, and again, this is public information. This was leaked. This is meanwhile fiscal year. I'm just kind of jumping all over the place in this article, but meanwhile, fiscal year 2023 broke the record for encounters on the FBI terror watch list, with 151 people encountered at the southern border between ports of entry, a high number a higher number than the previous 6 years combined. For
Right.
those of you who were driving and is breaking up in your car or you can't rewind, I got to say that again. Fiscal year 2023 broke the record for encounters on the FBI terror watch list. 151 encountered at the southern border between ports of entry, a higher number than the previous 6 years combined. Now, think about this. That should stand alone by itself. That should be enough
Absolutely.
right there.
Right. Exactly.
151 people on the terror watch list. Okay. So now this is not that 10% to commit 90%. These are people who we know have
We
committed
know them.
terrorism. They've been involved in terrorism.
Absolutely.
We already know. Here's where it gets much, much worse. Number one, these are the people that have been encountered. Let's go back to how many people have come across the border in the last year plus.
2.2.
2.2 million.
Right.
Those are the ones that have been encountered. I can guarantee you the number's higher than that. The 151 on the terror watch list are the ones that have been encountered. Does anybody in their right mind think that only 151 people on the terror watch list have tried to breach our southern borders, and these
Absolutely.
151 are the only ones that were successful? Next
Right.
point.
Right. Right.
Next point.
Just amazing.
Here,
Just amazing.
here's what I want people to try to digest. I want you to think about this. Every day, maybe that's overstated, but certainly on a regular basis, we hear about a child being abducted, even though it's very, very, thank God, extremely rare, in an individual life that this might happen. It's extremely unlikely. But because we're a country of 320 million people, when it gets reported, if it's just, a tiny, tiny, tiny percent, you're going to hear about this a lot, about child abduction, child molestation, child predators, things like this. And a lot of these people who have been convicted of crimes with child pornography or others, they're set on the sex offender watch list. Does anybody think that local or county or state or federal law enforcement has identified every child predator in this country?
Of
Or we've
course
only
not.
identified the ones we've identified?
Right.
We don't know what we don't know. We don't
Right.
know where the next serial killer is coming from. We don't know how many serial killers are out there. We don't know how many child predators are out there. We don't know that. All we know is what we know. So I
What we
want you
know.
to not juxtapose, but I want you to compare that to the 151 known terrorists that have tried to
Absolutely.
breach this border. How about the people who've tried and been successful? And how about the terrorists that we don't even know exist? And if people want to put their faith in the federal government, you're dumber than I would have believed a
You're
second
dumber than
ago. If you tell me, oh, I
exactly.
believe them. If you believe that, why weren't we able to prevent 9/11? Why weren't we able to, along with the Israelis, who even we as a country say have the best intelligence in the
They
world,
had the best
how come they weren't able to
exactly.
prevent the breach into their
Right.
country?
Right. If a country like
Ladies and
Israel,
gentlemen, this is why the rule of law is so important.
important. Absolutely.
It's important for a number of reasons. One of the reasons it's so important is because this gives us a guideline, it gives us a roadmap to deal with people who want to do us harm. I'm going to take a break, Danny. Maybe you want to chime in, editorialize, but I just get so hot about this when people just deny reality.
And Mark, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm just sitting here grinding what little teeth I have left in my mouth. I'm grinding that away because you're just so right. It's people. You can talk to them. You can throw off these, and these are realistic numbers. These aren't made up numbers. These didn't come off the Clown Nose Network. I mean, these are true numbers that people themselves can go and research, and they will look at those numbers, and those numbers mean absolutely nothing to them because so many Americans are just dead inside. They don't want to hear these stats. They don't want to hear this. They want to live their little lives that they're living. And hey, I'm a Democrat, so I want to vote Democrat. You had John McKinney on your last podcast. And I'm not trying to get away from that. Now, John McKinney, it's a Democrat. He's a liberal. But after listening to your last podcast on the Nobel and the explanation of that, I'm going, man, this guy is the real McCoy. Now, Mark, I'm a bleeding heart conservative Republican. And man, I'm so proud to say that. And guess what? All the audience out there, guess what? I'm not on any social media. You can't find me. So you can't. I mean, and if you want to knock me, because I really don't give a rat's ass, okay? I want people to knock me. I want people to hate me because I am a bleeding heart, red, white, and blue American. But John McKinney, I will vote for that guy. I will support that guy, send the guy money because I like his philosophy on law and order. And to me, that's what it's about. Not just saying, oh, hey, he's not a Republican, so forget about it. I want people in office that are here to protect the U.S. citizens, protect our government, protect what we have here. And that's what I want. And I'm listening to you talk. I'm listening to these stats here. And I am just like beside myself how people, they aren't even in denial. It's just like they just shrug their shoulders like, oh well, 151, that's just a number to them. It doesn't even make sense to them. And it's like you said, these are 151 known terrorists. Well, magnify that with the Hubble telescope and just think of how many more are out here running around in our country that we don't even know about because we've been so lax at our borders and we're letting, and Mark, and let's even forget about terrorists and blowing stuff up because people don't care. I mean, what about how about all these child traffickers that are coming across, drug pushers and dealers, and and just how about just the regular everyday run-of-the-mill criminal that's coming across our borders that law enforcement now has got to deal with, and here in California where this gruesome is all these Senate bills that he's passing. I mean, it's almost like, listen, unless of course you commit a murder, and you know what, that murder's got to be committed a certain way before it to be a serious crime. And I mean,
Yep.
I just want to go out and
listen.
I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm just so frustrated with what's going on, and people are just accepting it. It's like, God, these are just like sheep going to slaughter. They're just accepting their fate, and it's like, you don't. I mean, people wake up and see what's going on out here. I mean, and they lie to you, and they tell you, "Oh, the border's under control." Heck, half these politicians, these liberal politicians, don't even want to go down to the border. They just out of sight, out of mind. If we don't, if
You mean
we
like the
don't go
borders
there,
are? You mean like the
what's that?
borders are, Kamala Harris?
Absolutely.
You mean
You
like the
know,
borders are, Kamala
it,
Harris? Yes.
oh, yeah, exactly. Eh, and the thing is, Mark, I think a lot of it is if we don't go down there, if we don't take a look at it, if we don't see it, we can't be held responsible, because I really can't even comment on it because I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. But so many
Right.
people are accepting of that answer. Well, I haven't had a chance to go down there yet to see it, so I can't make an honest assessment. I'm thinking, I mean, I don't, Mark, it's
What,
just
in other words, what's more important? What's your priority? What's keeping you from going to the border? My God.
absolutely,
So
exactly.
now, Danny, this is a great segue, talking about border security and the politicians that are great. Our genius vice president, border czar, has been there once, barely, to barely
Barely.
see any physical barrier. But I want to talk about that because the question is here. I think well, certainly you and I understand about the numbers issue and about the likelihood that people that we don't want here for security reasons are here now and continue to come. The question is why? Why would any administration, why would any president not only allow this to happen, but actually um, encourage it to happen and to facilitate? Why? And I got a little bit here. I want to touch on and about the law, about the rule of law, and about what's going on with Joe Biden, what's going on with this administration. And we just know that recently they said they're going to start building the wall and blah, 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 right? 20 miles of wall someplace in Texas. They're not sure yet. And of course, this is a complete departure from his campaign promise, not another inch of wall in my administration, and on and on and on and on. And walls are evil. Nancy Pelosi, thank you very much. And all this crap. And now Joe Biden is going to start building the wall. So I'm
Well,
going to use his words and other experts, not mine, but I am going to dissect them. So just stand by. I want you to hear a little bit. So when asked about the news, this is about building the wall. Again, I'm cutting these things up to save everybody time here. When asked about the news on October 5th that the new border wall construction would indeed commence under his administration, Biden told reporters the border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate it, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law. Now, I'm using Joe Biden's words here. Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. If you are a Joe Biden supporter, if you support this administration, if you're one of those people who call Trump a liar, I want you to listen carefully. I want you to challenge yourself just to be intellectually honest. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law that they have to use the money for what it is appropriated. I'm quoting him. And as you might guess, he's rambling and can't put two words together
of course.
to make a sentence. I can't stop that. In other words, he's saying the money's appropriate and I can't stop it. Quote, yes, the president's hands are tied. Gabe Murphy, policy analyst at the budget watchdog group Taxpayers for Common Sense, told us when asked about Biden's claim. He pointed to an appropriations bill that was signed into law December 20th, 2019, under the previous administration, during the Trump administration, that explicitly appropriated funding for the construction of a barrier system along the southern border, unquote. Biden asked Congress to reprogram the money, but it didn't agree to do that. So the money needs to go out the door. I don't know what that means. Murphy said,
right.
Under the 1974 Impoundment Control Act, an administration can't substitute its own policy priorities for that Congress hasn't acted into law. And by the way, I agree with all that.
Right.
I agree with all that. I even agree with Biden's words, such that they are rambling, that, hey, Congress passed it, the appropriate for this, I have to do it. I agree with that, what he said, but it's not what he believes.
Right.
It's not what he wants to do.
Right.
Michelle Middlestat, Director of Communications for the Migration Policy Institute, also noted the money had been appropriate in 2019 for border barrier construction, and the Biden administration did not succeed in its asks to Congress to redirect that money for border spending it viewed as more effective. Drones and flyers saying don't come, I guess. However, Middlestat said in addition to that, the administration is in court defending its halting of border wall construction after Texas and Missouri sued. The combined case is before a federal judge in Texas in a request for an injunction that will require the government to restart construction and is expected soon, given briefings in the legal case ended in middle September, so forth and so on. So here's the thing. The day Biden took office, he issued a proclamation ending a national emergency on the southern border, which had been declared by the Trump administration, and pausing both construction of border wall barriers and obligation of border wall funds to the extent permitted by law. Listen carefully, ladies and gentlemen. Even according to Joe Biden, or who's ever pulling the string behind his neck there, shake the hand. Anyway, he said that the bill was passed in 2019 under the Trump administration. His hands are tied. It's the law. Listen to me. One of his campaign promises, I just said it, after 2019, but before he was elected, said not one more inch of border security wall, knowing that Congress had already passed the bill saying he was obligated to build the wall.
Right.
He lies. Right. He doesn't know he's lying because he doesn't know what planet he's on. That's a different story. Right. He doesn't tell you the truth. He knew. Now, if he had said during the campaign, listen, Congress has already appropriated funds. I'm bound to build the wall. I don't want to. Right. Walls are evil. They don't work. I don't lock my front door in Delaware. Whatever he wanted to say. But I'm going to try to get that law changed. Right. That would have been at least intellectually honest.
Honest, exactly.
But he knew. Now, by the way, if he didn't know those funds were appropriated running for president of the United States, he is more slipshod and vacuous than even I thought. He should have known this because this is a big campaign pledge, right?
Right.
Now, here's where else, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to read from an article from this. I just wanted to give you his own words and a spokesperson's words. I want you to go back a year or two. In fact, last year, I want you to go back to a ruling from SCOTUS. For those of you who vote Democrats, SCOTUS stands for Supreme Court of the United States. SCOTUS ruled against Joe Biden with his college debt forgiveness plan. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did anybody remember that?
Yes.
They said that it was unconstitutional. Why? Because he cannot make laws. Right. He is not Congress. He is not part of the legislative body. He cannot, with an edict, say, I'm going to go ahead and take taxpayer money and repay people. They said he was acting unconstitutionally and effective illegally, right? So someone who says that the border wall is evil, doesn't work, not effective, blah, 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 why wouldn't he just go ahead and disregard the law again? He did it to repay students' loans. Did he not?
Right.
Someone answer me. I dare you. I implore people. Go ahead. Like Danny says, he's on social media. I am. You got my Twitter. You got my Instagram. Someone explain to me why in the case of loan debt forgiveness, he breaks the law. The Supreme Court ruled against him. But with the border wall, my hands are tied.
Right, exactly.
I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's because we are a year out from the 2024 election.
Exactly, the election.
Joe Biden's handlers are saying, listen, the border issue is real. We're looking at the polls. It's number one on almost everybody's radar as far as campaign issues. So we have to hedge our bet. We have to walk this middle ground. We have to do something, even if we don't get the wall built. And mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not convinced we're still going to see 1 inch of the wall.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because now what they're doing, they're setting up this narrative. Well, my hands are tied. Got to build it. Well, I got to figure out where to build it. We got to build it. I'm not sure yet. Well,
Red
whatever. We're
tape.
still working with
Exactly.
Congress. The
Absolutely.
reason
Right.
is because they want to do now. They want to have out there. They want to have in the universe that yeah, we're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. So when you vote for me in 2024, don't worry. The wall's coming. This is why they're doing this.
Right.
They
Exactly.
don't want the wall, and because they want to flood this country, and they're doing it effectively, they want to flood this country with people who they believe, they hope, and they will vote
Will eventually
Democrat
vote for them. Would vote
in
Democrat. Right.
generations. Okay, so
Exactly.
there's my spiel on it. There's Mark Garrett, the old copper from California of 30 years, who just dissected this administration's strategy to try to fool the American people. We break the law when we want to. We say we're going to adhere to the law when we want to. Again, they're not grounded in the rule of law. They're grounded in ideology, ladies and gentlemen. They are nefarious. They don't give a damn about the rule of law. They only care about power. They only care about control. They only care about winning elections, and yes, any way they possibly can. Now, with that said, about voters, Danny, you know where I'm going to segue into right now.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
About voters.
Right.
So you want to touch on this, because we talked about it yesterday, and I know you have that article up in front of you, but if not, I can kick it off and hand it over to you a little bit, because I want to have a good conversation about
Well,
this.
I read. I mean, I read the article, and actually, I mean, the border stuff. I'm still just, steaming from you talking about the border here. I'm about ready to throw all this stuff off my head and go out here and look for getting a fist fight with somebody here. If I go to jail, I'm gonna blame you. Now you're in Florida. I'm gonna have you.
By the way, Danny. By the way, I think in California, wearing that shirt, isn't that a crime?
I'm sure it is.
So if you go outside,
I want to. Well, today, Mark. My favorite place to shop is at Walmart. And so there's a lot of liberals there at Walmart. So I like wearing this shirt to Walmart, because guess what? I get a lot of friendly hand signals from people.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some reason they like using a certain digit on their hands, but it's okay. I wave back at everybody else, and so I love that stuff. But I read that article about Governor Newsom and Bonta wanting to sue the city of Huntington Beach.
Well, let's break it down. Let's break it down for people who don't know, and we can get a little more broader. And so I have the article here, but what Danny's talking about, Huntington Beach, which for those of you who live in California know exactly where Huntington Beach is, and for those of you who don't, it's in Orange County, kind of middle Orange County. Which used to be very conservative. Now it's a purple county, but Huntington Beach has been pretty reliably conservative, and they pushed back against Newsom. By the way, Newsom hates Huntington Beach because they pushed back during the lockdowns. They kept the beaches open.
Right.
It was as far as cities go, they were my hero. So recently, in continuing their fight against the oppression of Newsom, the Democrats in California, and the people who actually hate voter integrity, the city council in Huntington Beach just recently approved a ballot measure, a measure to go on the ballot in March of next year, 2024, in the primary ballot.
Right, March 5th. Yes,
March 5th, and that ballot initiative, or that ballot measure, I'm sorry, it would be to let the citizens of Huntington Beach vote whether or not they want to determine whether or not they want to require identification for people to vote. Jeez, what a novel idea to make sure that who comes in. Yeah, isn't that amazing, Danny?
What a novel idea.
So it says the controversial proposal passed 4-3 with the council's four most conservative members voting together as a block. By the way, I can't remember what show it was, but recently I talked about, and again, I'm not saying anything that's new, but I just want to reinforce this, how in bed the media, even some so-called conservative or objective media, is in bed with the Democrat Party. I want to read that line again. The controversial proposed proposal passed 4-3, with the council's 4 most conservative members voting together as a bloc. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how else would 4 out of 7 people vote?
Right.
As the 4 voted, splintered. Every other one voted. But here's the thing: the 3 most liberal, apparently they didn't vote the bloc. Do you understand? Do you understand the mind screwing? I want to use the F word. Do you understand? I want to say, what do you mean? How else would they vote?
Right.
As a bloc. But the Democrats, they didn't vote as a bloc. They voted as, I don't know. I guess they're individual thinkers. Anyway.
Right. Those 3 votes were somehow splintered or something. I mean,
yes.
How else do you
vote? If you just take a time to actually look at the words you're reading, ladies and gentlemen, in a newspaper, with your social media, it's so easy to pick apart these people, is it not? I mean, anyway. Last week, California, here it comes. Last week, California Attorney General Rob Bonta and Secretary of State Shirley Weber, and boy, is she a piece of work. Shirley Weber, I'd say anyway. That's a whole different series of podcasts. Yes. Sent a letter to the city council warning them that the proposed amendment would conflict with state law. Now, by the way, they're right, because in California, it's against the law to ask for anybody's ID at a polling place. Right. You can't do it, right? So, yeah. So, in other words, we don't care who you are. We don't care how many times you vote, blah, 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 blah. But what they're doing is, it's fine. We'll go ahead and pass our own city law. You can sue us. It'll go to court. At least they're doing things the right way. Fine. We're gonna go ahead and put this on the ballot.
Right.
Go ahead and sue us. We'll take it to court. If we lose, we lose. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Little Huntington Beach, and not by themselves, because they are really they are paired up, not paired up, more than 2, but they are working together with other cities across the state to push back, to fight back. But there's a reason, Danny. I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm actually preaching to the preacher. Sorry, but there's a reason that the left wants the border open. There's a reason the left wants no ID. The funny at polling places. The funny thing is, I looked at the demographics. Huntington Beach is somewhere around 60-something% white.
Right. Yeah.
The funny thing is, I looked at it. It's something like 20. It says 20-something% Native American. That's what it says on their site or whatever. I say, I don't know what that means. It's 20-something% Native American, American Indian. I don't know how that works. And about 1%, about 1% black.
Black, yeah.
And of course, we know what the argument is, right? From the Dems, from the left, that voter ID is voter suppression. That it's hard for
for people of color, blah blah blah.
Yeah, people of color, poor minorities. They don't have access to ID. Well, look, go back to Georgia. Georgia passed this state law requiring ID, so forth and so on. What happened in the 2020 election? They had a higher voter turnout than the 2016 election and the 2018 election.
Right.
After voter ID was passed into law. And because everybody, if you can tie your shoes, you know how to get an ID, and almost everybody has an ID. The idea that the left, the Democrats, tell me as a black person, you as a black person, or my Mexican wife, or anybody else, a person of color, that they don't have the ability to get an ID like any white person can is beyond insulting.
It's beyond insulting. Mark, I was telling somebody, this was yesterday, because I told them about this podcast. I told them that I've had some form of identification since I've been 12 years old. When I went to Overwright Junior High School, we had to get an ID. And so we went to school, we got our ID and stuff. Mm-hmm. And now I'm 68 years old. I was born in 1955. and now in 1955, the world, America, everything, California, everything was different in 1955. Now, probably in 1855, I'm not even sure if blacks were even voting in 1855. I went to California. I mean, I went to LA Unified School District, so the history that they taught us was really kind of whatever. My whole point is that obviously we're in 2023 now. Let's stop talking about what happened 150 years ago or 200 years ago. We're in 2023. Everybody now, Mark, you worked in law enforcement. I worked in law enforcement, and I've worked on the fire side also. 35 years of this stuff here for me, and like you, I've been in the poorest homes that you can ever imagine. But guess what? Everybody had. They had a laptop, and they had a cell phone, and they had some means to go out there and get a form of identification. And so especially when, and you don't hear this from the Republican side. I mean, if you do, I miss it. But the bottom line, especially on the Democratic side, on the liberals, far left liberal side, they insult Black people, they insult minorities on a daily basis because they call us stupid, they call us incapable. They say that we're so broken that we can't do it on our own. That we've got to have these laws in place to protect their voters' rights. Hell, I was surprised that you said that there's a 1% blacks living in Huntington Beach. Okay, and I'm thinking, well, why would they even care about voter suppression? Because they're all white folks in Huntington Beach. I mean,
that was my point about giving those stats. Who are they going to suppress?
Who are they going to suppress? And the thing is that and if a brother's living in Huntington Beach, that brother can guess what he's got? He's got an ID. Okay, so you really aren't suppressing anybody. And these things are just so insulting, so racist. But the sad part about it is that, Mark, is that blacks, Hispanics, whatever you want to call it, I hate using the word people of color. I hate all this. You want to use minority, whatever.
Right.
The sad part about this is that people don't wake up and go, "Hey, you know what? You're insulting me. I'm intelligent. I'm capable. I can go out there and if I need ID for something, you need an ID for driver's license, to buy alcohol, to go to the library. You need you need passports to fly. You need identification to fly. There's so many. There's 15, 20 instances that you need some form of ID to operate in this country. But yet you can't get an ID to do one of the most probably important things that you'll ever do, and that's to vote. I mean, I just can't buy. I cannot buy their ideology. I just can't. And I never will. I'll never submit to it. I'll never buy into it. It's just ridiculous and it's racist. And this I'm fed up with this voter ID stuff.
Well, Danny, you listen, and I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here looking at this article right now, and I'm listening to you. Oh my God, this is perfect. I hadn't even read all this stuff. I just knew about the vote from the city council. I looked at a little of this before we came on the show. But listen to this: Mayor Pro Tem Gracie Vandermark, perhaps the most controversial of the four conservative council members, one of the block voters, shot back at this argument. The argument was that let me back up a little bit. Let me go to the line before this. Other commenters cited, this is the open forum when they had, with the city council. Other commenters cited research showing that voter ID laws have the effect of suppressing voter turnout in certain areas, including those dominated by minorities and those with low income. Again, this is going back to what you were talking about, right off the cuff. You were just talking about it just organically. And here it is in the article. Mayor Pro Tem Gracie Vandermark, perhaps the most controversial of the four conservative council members, shot back at this argument. I'm Hispanic, she told the crowd. I had an ID as a teenager. Goes back to what you said about Orville Wright.
Right.
We were poor, not ignorant. She said the insinuation that minorities were incapable of carrying identification was itself racist. Again, pretty much quoting what you just said off the cuff, Danny. This is exactly right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it is called your Leo Nation because it's about law enforcement, the rule of law.
Absolutely.
If we don't know as best we can who is actually punching a hole in a ballot, if we can't at least comfortably be sure that this is the person they say they are, how do we dare say that we have any level of voter integrity? How do we dare say that? Would
Absolutely.
you would you would you even would you even consider the possibility of walking into your local bank and opening a checking account without some form of
Voter
identification?
ID.
It is
Right.
literally impossible.
Possible.
You cannot do it. But somehow the same, like you said, Danny, I don't like the phrase either, but just so the Democrats, the liberals, and I say the left because, like you said, John McKinney, Democrat, I love
Right.
the guy.
Exactly.
This is
Right.
not all about individual Democrats. And I make that clear from time to time. I'm talking about
Absolutely.
the machine of the Democrat Party. I'm not talking about individual Democrats because most Democrats don't believe this crap about no ID any more than you and I do. It's the
Right.
machine that's pushing this. So anyway, but the idea that you could go into a bank and open a checking account, it's impossible. But somehow, the same people that apparently are suppressed with the necessity of having an ID to go vote are the exact same people who have those checking accounts at their bank. The exact
Right.
same people.
Exactly. Right.
Somehow
Absolutely.
they're able to do one, but apparently,
Not the
according to the
other.
Democrat machine, they're not able to do the other.
Right.
The Democrat machine, the left is simply a cauldron of dishonesty, of deception, of lying. And that goes all the way to the basic laws in this country. And this is why as a former law enforcement officer, I came to love the rule of law. The rule of law is not perfect because it's implemented by men. It's not implemented by God. We do the
Right.
best we can as law enforcement officers. We do, I think hopefully some people do the best they can as legislatures, things like this. No one's perfect. But that's why the law as written has to be the anchor. It has to be the focal point.
Right. Absolutely.
It cannot be a toy to be played with. It cannot be a tool to be manipulated. It has to always go back to the rule of law. And let's see what we can do about the way the law is written. And if we don't like the law, then we rewrite it. And by the way, they did that in California. They passed this legislation to outlaw voter ID in that state because they want chaos. They got it. And the
Right.
state has the right to do that. I don't like it. I think it's horrible. We see the effects of it. When we get multiple ballots with different people at the same house. And
And
yes,
Mark,
I've seen that
I don't
happen.
mean to interrupt you, but it's funny because when you mentioned chaos, that's one of their argumentative points is that, which is weird, that voter ID will create chaos. Without voter ID, there's less or no chaos because they're saying that they want to argue that by making people have an ID to vote, it lessens people's faith in our system. And I'm thinking, boy, I mean, you go overseas to the Middle East or whatever, and it's another two problem, Mark, is that a lot of people have not traveled in their life. Their world
Mhm.
is the city that they live in. They going to Las Vegas for a lot of people, that's their vacation, okay, or going down to the San Diego Zoo. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there that have never been outside of the US borders or even the California borders or wherever they live, they haven't been at those borders. And so they don't understand how other countries operate. And so many of these countries, I mean, they have super, super tight um, policies and fail-safe systems in their voting systems. I mean, we have a pretty, in my opinion, we have a very lax voting system, and that's why we had such chaos in 2020. It wasn't because people didn't want Trump in office. I mean, maybe people didn't want him in office, but there's a lot of chaos going on because we didn't have these fail-safe systems. We need to have these systems in here. In my opinion, once again, we need to have tighter voter restrictions so we don't have chaos. Now, but like you said, this left-leaning demagogue that's going on here, they're always going to argue different and say that. And the one thing that they always use, especially minorities, as their go-to argument. Something's going to always hurt us, and they're trying to protect us, which I don't believe one stinking iota. I don't believe that, and I don't know why.
Oh, Danny, sorry, I stepped on you there, but I couldn't agree more. And this goes back. By the way, we won't get into it today because I did talk about it before it happened, when it was still in the legislative process in California. But now it's come to fruition, and we can talk about it later on. But now we have, of course, the Ebony alert in California.
Oh, gosh.
And
Jesus.
we're going to we'll get into that. But again, I saw that one coming. I mean, in other words, it was public information, but I talked about that before it became law. But it's another example. And the reason that popped in my head right there is because you hit the nail on the head. All of this stuff, when it comes to, cops are racist and blacks get treated differently in the judicial, all of these things are always about, we are here to protect you, Black people. We're here to protect you, person of color. We're your friends, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. 40 acres and a mule. That's right, every time I hear we're here to help you, all I think is carpetbagger. All I think is, oh yeah, we're going to give you this because we really, really understand you're oppressed and you need help and you're a victim and you can't help yourself. So we're going to give you these things.
Right.
And we're going to make it easier, and we're not going to hold you accountable, whether it's academically, whether it's legally, whether it's socially.
Right.
We're going to treat you different because you are substandard to white people. They don't say that, but that's what they imply. And nothing can be more dangerous to an individual, certainly, and to a community of people, to the community, the Black community. Nothing can be more dangerous than to tell them for generations that they are not required to adhere to the rule of law like everybody else. Nothing could be more dangerous to the health of an individual and a community. We've seen it. We've seen the degradation of the Black community in so many ways, and it is all due to leftist propaganda.
Absolutely.
So I get furious about this because I'll be damned if anybody tells me or my biracial minority son that he is less capable because of genetics, not because of skin color and hairstyle. No way. But this is what the left tells these groups over and over and over. So just want you folks to know what's going on out there and to know where the breakdown of the rule of law comes from. Almost always, not always, but almost always, is one side or the other. So, and again, Danny and I both made it clear, we're not talking about individual Democrats. So don't even take that. We're talking about the machine, because there could not be a bigger supporter of John McKinney than two people on this podcast right now. But we have to look at individuals, not groups. And that's what I do every single day. So I know my brother does too. So,
and I tell you right now, I'm not
with that, Danny, what's that?
I'm not trying to hide my disdain for the left-leaning ideology. I hate them, and I hate that ideology. I don't try to hide that. I detest them. They're demonic. I mean, that's how I feel, and I'm proud of the way that I feel. But like you said, Mark, it's not. I mean, I've got plenty of Democratic friends that I love that They're liberal thinking, but as far as I'm concerned, they aren't dangerous. They're a
Mhm.
little lost, but and what can you say? All you can do is try to steer them in the right direction. But I mean, I'm against an ideology, and that's what I'm against. A party, a Democratic Party,
Well, same
Republican
here.
Party, and that's neither here or there. I'm against and opposed to an
Mhm.
ideology. I'm opposed to a group of people, and like you mentioned so often, which is so true about the rule of law and ignoring the law to push forward their ideology. And that's what I'm against. And
Yep.
I'm not the brightest guy here in the batch of bulbs here. That it is what it is, and but that's how I feel. And one thing I want to say before we sign off is that I really appreciate the fact I like what you're doing here. I love what you're doing, and let's just ignore the fact that you're my brother. It's just I like what's going on here, and I just pray to God, and this is my prayer that more people are tuning in and listening and having an open ear, and they're having an open mind to what's going on here. And the more I listen to these podcasts, the more I get into them, and the more I learn stuff. And so for me, it's just an honor to be able to sit here and listen to you talk and do this. Um, uh, and you and I, we're pretty much from the same boat here. And but I mean, this is something to me, and I know I'm just talking and rambling, and people are going to say, "Well, that's your brother, so yeah, you should say that, dumbass." I get it, but you know what, Mark, you could be somebody else. I don't. You could be Godzilla or whatever, Frankenstein versus the Aztec mummy, whatever it is, but you could be Mr.
By the way,
Sarcasticus.
ladies and gentlemen, you got to look that up. Just go to YouTube, Danny. I mean,
Oh,
we
oh,
implore you,
trust me,
please go to YouTube and look up
absolutely. Hey,
the
Mummy
robot
versus the Aztec
versus the
robot.
Aztec.
I don't care what side of the fence you're on, even you left leaning liberals, please, YouTube, Mummy versus the Aztec robot. You trust
No, no,
you.
no. Robot versus the Aztec mummy.
Robot versus I'm sorry, robot versus the Aztec mummy. Please go on YouTube and look that up. You will. It might change your life. It changed mine. Okay. All right. So, but anyway, Mark, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on. I mean, it's a pleasure to do this. It's a pleasure to listen to these podcasts. I mean, there's so much going on in this world that people need everyone, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, everyone needs to wake up and listen to these podcasts here. And I'm not just trying to sell your podcast. I don't care what it is, good information, and people have got to really open their minds to all this and look at this deep. And so anyway, that's what I need to say there. And I want to shut my damn jaws up here.
Well,
So
Danny, listen, I can't thank you enough for that, and I know you mean it. It means a great deal, coming from my big brother about that, and I'm doing what I can. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, my brother and I said it before, we're both former Reformed Democrats, so we've been on that side of the aisle as well. And by the way,
yes,
we never changed what we believed, not from day one. We never changed our philosophies. The
correct.
parties changed.
The just party's changed.
As Ronald Reagan said, he did not leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left him. And if you enjoy listening to this podcast, if you took away one thing from here, if you believe in the rule of law, if you believe that people should be treated the same, regardless of skin color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, if you believe those things, I don't, like Danny said, I don't care what party you're with, but reconsider where you're throwing your vote. There were people who voted George Gascon into Austin, Los Angeles County. Those of you in Los Angeles County listening right now, you have a chance. Like I said, when I signed off with John last show, you have a chance to get rid of that monster in the form of the Los Angeles County DA, and to get John McKinney in there. This guy will bring back sanity. I'm trying to do the same thing any place I can, any place I see an opportunity. If I can change one mind at a time, and by the way, we've done that. brought Republicans over. They still, I mean, Democrats are still Democrat, but they vote a certain way, or they don't vote party line now. They consider stuff. I'm doing this for the health of the country, not for anything for me. So I'm retired. I could be spending more time with my kid than researching these podcasts and doing them, but I got a higher calling as far as I'm concerned. And that's to help the country that I love, that I grew up with. My father defended in World War II, to survive and to thrive and to ensure freedom for generations to come. So
Absolutely.
with that said, Danny, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, follow on Instagram, on Rumble, on Twitter. Folks, please, if you're listening to this, please just get a hold of one person and get them to follow, to subscribe to YouTube, whatever it is. Just get one person, each of you listening. If you don't do that, then there's no reason to listen to that podcast, because I'm just talking to a wall. We need to continue to expand the audience, like Danny said. We have to expand this. If you're not happy with what's happening in your community, if you're not happy with what's happening in your country, you don't have to start your own podcast, but you need to do something. Get another listener on here. You can do that. So don't forget the Leo Project, your Leo Project, our charity. And I'm going to start teasing. I think we have something pretty cool coming down the road here. Some more information, some more personalities for you. We're going to kind of keep expanding. We are in this for the long haul. We love America, and we love the rule of law. So God bless everybody. Danny, thank you. Vince, Anthony, I failed to mention you guys in the background today, and that was on purpose because you're both worthless. But anyway, that's a different story. I'll tell you about that later on, ladies and gentlemen.
Anthony, I love you.
If I meant that,
bro.
Yeah, if I meant that, I wouldn't say it. Yeah, obviously, I won't say it behind this deal. But two great producers back there. Not good looking, but they're great guys. So appreciate you guys. God bless everybody. We'll see and talk to you next time.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.